Hello, I just want to make a couple of concluding comments about the first week's discussion board and this idea of kind of acknowledging our own biases, understanding how our own stories shape the way we see things and what we find believable. And as is usually the case, we get a kind of a spectrum of different answers. People who don't find the stories believable, or maybe it's better to say don't really want to discount the experiences of people, but don't think it necessarily is kind of conclusive evidence for something, some spiritual reality. Others who are more, what do you say, kind of just given to spiritual beliefs, raised in a faith tradition, are more open to the idea. So it's this, and some kind of in between. Some discussion about kind of the challenges or the kind of the mysteries of human thought and the complexities of the human mind, which brings up a question again of mind versus brain. Are those the same thing? If you're a metaphysical materialist, then they are. The brain is the mind. If you're not a metaphysical materialist, then mind and brain may be connected but different. At the same time, with those stories, it's sort of a subjective experience, right? So, in one sense, it can push us to look at, are there limitations to the scientific method? Again, scientific method, wonderful way to learn things. But there are limitations to it, right? What can you know by way of the scientific method? Somebody had mentioned kind of historical method, precedent, report. If we want to take that, lots of people in lots of different cultures and religions have some reports of such events. But it also brings us back to that question of what is evidence, even on the historical level. So I wanted to push just a little more. And before I do that, before you get bored, I want to mention here, and I'll note this kind of in a typed note as well, that if you didn't do 4 posts, you should recognize that you were supposed to do like an initial post and then responding to the other aspects of the question of other people. You should have posted 4 times total. So if you haven't, since this is the first week, I'll give you a little more time. By the time that this week's discussion board assignment is due, if you'll go ahead and kind of respond a couple more times. You can even respond to this video and the article that I post now. With this video, I'm posting a link to an article as well as a PDF version of that article. But this is a little different. It's on the positive side, not so negative. It's actually a friend of mine, his grandfather's story. So to me, it's a reliable story because he grew up with the story. There was no reason for his family to, no reason for him to think his family was lying about the story. He had a piece of tangible physical evidence that he had actually touched and seen to validate this story. Multiple members of his family and community had validated this story for him, and it's a different sort of look at the miraculous, and it's less of a mental subjective experience. It's more of an actual happening in his life. So his grandfather was a farmer back in the 60s, dealing with drought, and prayed for rain and had this event happen. I'll let you read the article. It's a really good article, so I'd love your take on that, and how does that apply to the discussion of what is evidence? How do we know things? What do you do with your bias when you come across something like this? I find that oftentimes our bias shapes even how we receive a story. I think it was Dostoevsky, I may be wrong, said something along the lines of miracles don't produce faith, faith produces miracles. And Dostoevsky was a Christian who struggled with a lot of doubt, but an interesting Christian and an interesting writer, if you've not read anything of his. But that's a that point can have multiple meanings. One I think here is we tend to interpret any story we hear through our biases. So kind of one last jab at making you realize that and admit to that. Most of you have done that fairly openly and honestly and well. So read this brief article, look at the picture of the piece of evidence. Feel free to comment on that, especially if you didn't post 4 times. Please do so by the time this Thursday when this week's posts are due. Also ask for 4 here. But go ahead and make sure you get the rest of your posts in, and feel free to address this to kind of make up that gap there. Anyway, looking good for this week. Recognize that your post, your first one needs to be early in the week. You're just trying to define religion yourself. And then you want to bring in, as the week goes on, some others. Again, I like to respond more kind of intermingled in the discussion boards, sometimes more personally, with questions and challenges. But when everybody waits till the last 2 days, that's really impossible for me. I teach multiple classes. They're kind of staggered, and if people kind of post throughout the week in the different classes, it gives me a chance to go in and respond here and there. I don't respond to every post. I couldn't possibly do that in the amount of time I have in a week. But I do try to respond to various threads and to various ideas. Sometimes I'll pull points from different threads and make my own post that mentions, look at so-and-so here and so-and-so here. But here again, this week, it all happened last Wednesday, Thursday, last minute. And I really couldn't get into that. So this is my post this week. It's just a challenge to look a little deeper, take a different approach. This is not such a subjective experience, as such a mental thing that could be kind of pushed off to, the mind is mysterious. It's asking you, what do you take as evidence? Is my friend's grandfather's miracle an actual miracle, or what's going on with that? So anyway, look forward to seeing a few answers. If you have time, even if you've already done 4 posts, I'd love to get a quick glimpse at what you think on this, but that's not required. You've already done the requirements for that one, but it's just at least do take a look at it. It's a very interesting story. Neat picture in the article. Thank you, and we'll look forward to further discussion. Here again, try to jump early. It's already Monday when I'm posting this. So, Thursday comes fast. Try to go ahead and get in on this week's discussion board early. And if you didn't get 4 posts in the last one, try to get those in soon. Thanks, and have a good day.